That right there is exactly how you need to respond to these people.
Just teamwork and goal setting. In terms of mental health, studies show that participating in youth sports is associated with lower rates of anxiety and depression, lower amounts of stress, higher self-esteem and confidence.
Women must stop. Inclusion cannot be prioritized over safety and fairness. And Ranking Member Lee, if my testimony makes me transphobic, then I believe your opening monologue makes you a misogynist. Thank you.
Guys, John Claymore here, and welcome back to my channel. And we got to talk about this issue, which, by the way, I've not talked about a lot recently. And, of course, that's the topic of women's sports and those people who feel the need to infringe on what is supposed to be a protected, let's just say, form of sports, meaning that women's sports does not need anything inside women's sports except for actual women. Unless maybe you're a coach or maybe you're a referee, I think that women's sports obviously needs to have just simply biological women. Now, guys, I did a lot of videos on this in the past year and a half, and of course, we're going to be talking about this topic. But one more thing, too. There's a little warning that I need to give out to a certain crowd that, let's just say, decide that they want to attack somebody. Of course, that they're being Raleigh Gaines over accepting a payment from somebody else. It's going to sound a little bit contradictory given the nature of my channel and my actual views as far as, let's just say, overall politics, but still at the same time, it's something that, quite frankly, people do on a normal everyday basis. And to go on top of this, we're going to have to unite at some point in time to fight this enemy the same exact way we're trying to do now. And, of course, that enemy is the radical left. Now, in the old days, when the leftists come around, the old school commies, the people who ran the Soviet Union, the people who, quite frankly, ran Nazi Germany, let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. The Nazis were, in fact, leftists. If you actually study the doctrines of fascism and study actual National Socialism and what they were doing in those nations, you would find out that they were definitely a lot more left-wing, and they were all formal ardent Marxists. I just want to go ahead and get that out of the way. Fascism, Doctrines and Fascism, page 36. It's a book that was written by Giovanni Gentili, or it's the writings of him and Benito Mussolini. You will find out that these people are, in fact, very much on the left. Of course, the American left has gone completely off the rails, absolutely loony. People like Joseph Stalin, Vladimir Lenin, Mussolini, who I just mentioned, Giovanni Gentili, who I just mentioned, whom else? Oh, Mao, Kim Jong-il, Kim Il-sung, the old people. Even Kim Jong-un, who's also a communist. Even Fidel Castro. None of these people would find themselves being okay with going to drag shows with, kids and crap. Or none of these people would be okay with what's going on in women's sports because, and I don't want to sound like I'm defending these people, I'm just saying that the old communist is not the same as the brand new commie. The new leftist, in my opinion, is just straight up psychotic. Not a whole lot you can say to these people to convince them otherwise. I mean, these people don't even know what bathroom to use. I know that YouTube's probably going to limit the ads in this video, but at this point in time, I've already gone this far, so screw it. Why not just go ahead and not self-censor? So, the issue of biological men playing in women's sports has obviously been a hot topic. It's been that way for the past year and a half, and of course, now we're officially getting the hearings where people like Raleigh Gaines, professors, those in athletics are finally getting their opportunity, especially in women's athletics, to actually voice what's actually been going on during this entire situation because obviously we're trying to protect Title IX. We'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the video. But before we get to some of these highlights and some of the things going on, I want you guys to see this really quick before we go any further because this right here happened during the hearings.
The Heritage Foundation loves Texas. Ooh, they love Texas. They always sending us some nonsense bills that somehow set this country on the wrong trajectory. They send them to Texas. They send them to Florida. Every deplorable state that we can think about, they usually coming out of y'all's think tank. But nevertheless, when we talk about protecting women, what we've seen is, say, in the state of Ohio was one of the most recent states when their lawmakers didn't have the courage to do what they needed to do because, of course, we believe in gerrymandering. And because we believe in gerrymandering in this...
Point of order. I moved
Please stop my time.
I moved to strike her words, deplorable states.
That's not a point of order. Let the gentlelady proceed.
The committee will suspend. Whoa, 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 whoa. The committee will suspend. Just hold, slow.
Ms. Crockett, seeing how it is that you are a Democrat congresswoman from the state of Texas, the 30th district, I find it very odd that you would attack your own state and call it a cracker state especially given the overall demographics of the state, is much, much heavier Hispanic, much, much heavier Asian. Well, not really heavy Asian, but it's definitely definitely white, but definitely a lot of Hispanics, a lot of inner city blacks, of course, Asians, people of all ethnicities in the state of Texas. Still, though, it still just has a lot more Hispanics, which, by the way, is something very, very weird, because if you want to avoid some type of conflict, you may want to work with the people inside those inner city neighborhoods that Biden is allowing to come across. Also, something else, too, it kind of shows you exactly how this person really truly feels, because you see, Hispanics are not white, Latinos are not white, Asians are not white either. It's almost like they're trying to say that anybody who's not black is automatically white. I just figured I'd go ahead and toss that out there. But this is kind of how these people really and truly are. It used to be that they actually hid their discontent for people who did not agree with them. Now they openly say it out loud. This person, by the way, is an actual true believer in the actual cause. But then again, though, the more and more you get to the next person, the more and more you see that maybe they might not really and truly be. Maybe it's just for the clicks, just for the voter base. I really truly don't know what these people's problems are. Either way, it's absolutely loony. It's absolutely crazy. And you're not protecting women at all. You're actually being what Riley Gaines said at the very beginning of the video. You're being misogynistic. I myself, by the way, would get called misogynist because I'm defending women and women's sports, biological women. Look, let's be real. Let's go ahead and get visceral about this. If you are a father and you've got a daughter out there who's playing, say, soccer or softball, I think the last thing you would want is for a little boy or a male to come play against your daughter. I don't think you would want that to happen, at least for competition purposes. You definitely would be concerned if, say, your daughter grew up to be a mixed martial arts fighter. A lot like in the case of Fallon Fox, who transed and then went into women's MMA and literally beat the crap out of two separate women before it finally had to stop. The thing is this right here, this situation, it really cuts at the heart of the matter if you have children, if you have a daughter or whatnot. Now, me, I don't have any kids or anything that I know of at this moment in time, but still, nieces, nephews, small cousins, been a stepfather figure on a couple of occasions. I'm not going to lie to you guys, but the thing is this right here. When children are involved, especially if they're your own children, you want to make sure that they get a fair shot. This right here is not giving these kids a fair shot. This right here is what they're actually debating. It's part of the reason why Title IX exists. It exists so that way it can be a little bit more fair, especially when it comes to the topic of sports. However, then comes the topic of freedom versus inclusion. Now, I hear a lot of people scream and holler that they don't have any freedom, they don't have any rights. And for the most part, when I hear their arguments, the more and more I listen to them, the more and more I realize that what they're really asking for is freedom from any form of responsibility. Think about this really quick. You are an athlete. You are a male athlete, not a women athlete. I'm going to put focus on the men for a second. You are a male athlete. You train. Maybe you're going into weightlifting. And for whatever reason, you can't max bench at 300 or 400 pounds. So what do? You train, you get bigger, you get stronger, you keep practicing over and over and over again. You want to get stronger. But for competition purposes, all of a sudden you can't place no higher than 50th. So when you decide to say, well, you know what, I'm a woman now and go into women's sports, you're actually killing their possibility of having an actual life and being successful. That's really what it comes down to. It's completely unfair. It's not right. You quite frankly shouldn't do this. Or what if you're playing women's soccer and let's just say a grown man's right leg comes up in the air just a little bit too high and ends up kicking that girl right in the face, breaking her teeth, breaking her nose. I know injuries are going to come up in this video here as well. Or what if a certain type of hit is laid on a woman very, very low and it breaks her legs? Whereas if she got hit by another woman, at the most, it might just result in a bruise or maybe an injury that might put her out for a day or two. See, men performing in women's sports, and I don't think I have to go through the biology of anything because it's pretty well common sense that men naturally are stronger than women. They're built to be stronger, where women are actually built more to bear children. There's a reason why women have an additional layer of fat there. Ladies, I'm not trying to pick on the women or anything. I'm just simply saying that women are not designed to compete against men. It's pretty well common sense. I'll put some links in the description box. You guys know me. It's not going to be till sometime next year when I start doing much more detailed video essays where I'm going to be throwing stuff like this in here. Of course, I've just now got the technology to do that type of stuff, but still at the same time, I'm pretty sure you guys probably know where I'm going with this. Biological men performing in women's sports, quite frankly, is dangerous. It can be, quite frankly, deadly. And of course, there's also been reports of these guys who, quite frankly, I've been saying for a very long time, who are allowed to go inside women's bathrooms. They are doing this for the sole purpose of being just good old-fashioned predators. It's a way for them to actually get away with it. You know, think about it really quick. And, you know, you may find yourself using your logic against them one day. You're having a debate with somebody. Maybe you're having a discussion, and maybe you bring up this same topic, and your opponent, who may be male, may suddenly say, did you just assume my gender? Next thing you know, they turn. I mean, I understand this is very unrealistic, but just think about it really quick. There's a lot of absurdities that could, in fact, happen as a result of all this stuff that's going on now, especially with biological men trying to compete inside women's sports. The question, however, is exactly how culpable is the NCAA and the sports, let's just say, the athletic departments who run this type of thing. Let's go ahead and watch the first part. We'll come back on the other side. We'll give a little more commentary, and then we'll watch the rest of it and give some additional commentary and close this video out and give you guys my final thoughts.
Contact or throwing something at one another or collision. These girls are scared. Another thing I hear across the country is women are terrified to speak out. They're terrified to be vilified. They're terrified to be called transphobic or bigots like we've been called in this hearing today for stating our views. And that's a real threat. And I understand it because since taking the stance that I've taken, my address has been leaked. And since my address was leaked, I've had people showing up at my doorstep. I've had drones flying above my house. I can't even tell you the amount of death threats that I've had that have rendered the FBI getting involved. It's real. The vitriol I've faced, I've been held for ransom for over 4 hours where these protesters demanded that if I wanted to make it home to see my family safely again, I had to pay them money. I've been hit, I've been spit on, I've had bottles thrown at me, drinks poured on me. Thomas's teammates in particular, they were forced every single week to go to mandatory LGBTQ education meetings to learn about how just by being cisgender, they were oppressing Thomas. And when they were concerned about the locker room aspect, and 16 of these swimmers, Thomas's teammates, sent an email to their administration with their parents on the email expressing their discomfort in the locker room, the administration responded back with, if you feel uncomfortable seeing male genitalia, here are some counseling resources that you should seek in an attempt to re-educate yourself. At Roanoke College...
In light of the time, Ms. Gaines, just real quickly, I know that the locker room situation that you described earlier, do you think that the NCAA is actually working to improve this situation, or is it kind of status quo with them and sweeping it under the rug?
It's certainly status quo. President Charlie Baker testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee a few weeks ago, and when confronted with that exact question, what does this policy pertaining to the locker rooms look like right now, he couldn't answer. He didn't know what the policy was. He had to tell Senator Hawley, well, let me get back to you in writing. And I think that's incredibly telling for the NCAA president to not even know.
Obviously, that was a lot there. A little over 2 minutes. The conversation, actually, she was talking about injuries and receiving injuries while competing. And, of course, basically what she was initially saying, I didn't bring the whole thing in. She was talking about what I was talking about earlier, how it is that certain types of injuries, especially if, say, someone is maybe hit or maybe bumped into by a male, of course, that there being male on female may cause more damage than what it would be if it's woman on woman. However, the thing that I want to focus on in this segment is the fact that, yes, it's true that Riley Gaines has been doxxed on several occasions. Now, you're probably thinking well, maybe she might have brought all some of this on. Of course, the people who would say that are probably people who are okay with men competing in women's sports. Very, very strange people these people are. Damn near psychotic, if you ask me. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. If you're okay with that, then you're probably got a problem, and maybe you should go get help. But then again, maybe you're beyond the point of actual help itself. And obviously, there's certain things I can't say here on YouTube. So in this case, we'll have to self-censor. But the fact of the matter is that she has been through a lot. She's tried to be very open about this issue. She's tried to take care of this issue. She's tried to get people to look at this issue. She's tried to get people to change their minds on this issue. Of course, most people don't change their minds on an issue until it actually personally affects them. When I was in paralegal school, my head teacher, she was a lip. Taught me a lot, okay? And I've always been a conservative. I'm not going to lie to you. She taught me a lot, okay? And, I think we had a discussion one day about if something hits at home versus the courtroom. And I say, let me take a wild guess. You're going to say that the minute I go inside of a courtroom, I'm going to become a liberal because I'm going to be looking for any route to get off in case I get in trouble. She said, yes. I said, however, what happens when this type of issue, of course, when it comes to the topic of abortion or gay marriage or possibly what you guys are seeing now? Because believe it or not, people talked about this actually a long time ago, and I brought this up because we actually had to do a report on what would happen if men got involved in women's sports. And at the time, 99.9% of the class, for the exception of the secondary teacher, were actually siding with it. Even the liberal ones even sided with it, said it wasn't right. That was pretty much the general consensus. And I said, well, you just wait till an issue like this where it hits you at home, and you'll become a conservative pretty daggone quick, which is, of course, what's actually happening. But going back to the whole doxing thing, you see, guys, there's another group of people out there who dox Miss Gaines. And I'll tell you guys about that towards the end, because people may want to chill, especially when it comes to a certain side of politics, which, by the way, always gets dirty. Fact of the matter is that these girls who were going through this stuff were being forced to compete against biological males. Their lives are being ruined before they even start. Your opportunities are getting stumped, which is what we're going to be discussing now after this scene here.
Injuries, of course, can and do happen when females are playing against other females. But allowing men to play women's sports increases the likelihood and severity of such injuries. That's one of the reasons why, for 50 years, federal Title IX regulations have allowed schools to offer separate teams for women and men when the sports are contact sports or involve competitive skill. In April of 2023, the Department of Education proposed a rule that, if adopted, would reverse this presumption. Under the proposed rule, women's sports aren't just for women. They're for anyone who simply says they are a woman, unless a particular school can demonstrate to the satisfaction of the Department of Education that keeping a particular team female meets important educational objectives. The new rule mandates that every school in the country must demonstrate the unfairness of male participation on each specific women's team that they offer and develop rules that minimize harm to trans-identified athletes. But what about the harm to us? Who is working to minimize the harm done to female athletes? Let me be perfectly clear. A school that knowingly allows a male athlete to take a spot on a women's team or allows a male athlete to take the field in a women's game is denying a female student athletic opportunity. And that is sex-based discrimination, and it violates Title IX, regardless of what the new regulations might say. It is my sincere hope that members of this committee will take action to stop the Biden administration's illegal and administrative rewrite of Title IX. Of course, there is a place for everyone, regardless of gender identity, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of race or what sports you play. There's a place for everyone to play sports in this country. But unsafe, unfair, and discriminatory practices towards women must stop. Inclusion cannot be prioritized over safety and fairness. And Ranking Member Lee, if my testimony makes me transphobic, then I believe your opening monologue...
Quick, to the T community, create your own league. Seriously, create your own league. Okay? Look, I get it. You know, I get it. Our rights are being infringed upon. Your rights are not being infringed upon. If anything, you're infringing on everybody else. Look, women's safety while playing women's sports, I think, should be paramount here. I really and truly believe that we need to protect the girls who are actually out there. Of course, they'll call me misogynistic or they'll call me transphobic or whatever, when it's pretty obvious that they're being misogynistic. And in reality, they're also being transphobic too. I would love to explain to you how they would do that in much, much more detail, but here's what I'm going to say. You're basically not allowing these people to, how do I say, reproduce. Think about it. Can't have kids, so therefore you can't reproduce. And of course, the YouTube censorship is not going to like this one, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyways. Going back to what that first lady said, which actually she's talking about mental health and all that type of stuff there. Yeah, sports can't actually help out with that, which is part of the reason why I say create your own league. I don't care what you do, just stay the hell away from the people who are actually competing within their own frame, meaning that women's sports is designed for women's sports and men's sports is designed for men's sports. Or what you could do is learn to actually perform with the biological sex that you are. I said sex, not gender, okay? Just figure I'd throw that out there. You know, you're a grown man. Maybe you should compete against other men, all right? Maybe you should get better at your craft rather than trying to cheat the system. Like I said, YouTube's not going to like this, but quite frankly, at this point in time, I really don't care. Of course, if they hit me for terms and policies, I'll have to re-censor the video, but still at the same time, compete in your own league. That's what you need to do. Leave the girls alone. Riley's right. Safety, obviously, is paramount. Of course, sports can get a little bit rough, but it needs to be girl on girl in women's sports and not men on girl. It doesn't need to be girl on men either. I mean, think about it. I mean, just think about the damage that you are doing to the girls who are actually competing in their own sport. The effort that they put in, the fact that they're striving for a gold medal. Honestly, I think that all of Thomas's medals should go to the girls who competed against Thomas or were forced to compete against Thomas, like Riley herself. But still, at the same time, though, obviously, it's a certain agenda that, quite frankly, trying to push. And I really think it's the freedom from responsibility agenda, or the freedom from being your best agenda. We'll just call it psychotic. That right there is what the hell this entire situation is. It's completely, totally psychotic. Compete in your own league. Compete against your own sex. Seems to me, on the surface, what's going on here is that the people who are really and truly in charge, the people who are actually standing on top of everything, those who are actually handing down the orders, giving the orders on this topic, are, I wouldn't say they're so much out of touch. I would go with they're actually complicit. They're complicit in going along with it. This is obviously a part of the agenda. It's something that they want to do. And I would say that people on the lower staff, like what Ms. Gaines mentioned earlier, probably don't really have a lot of power in this situation. You probably think that they can. They probably could say something and speak out about it, which I think these are the people who need to be showing up along with the girls themselves to actually voice their opinion on this. Go outside the chain of command this time. And guys, as a guy who was prior service Marine, obviously I wouldn't want to go outside the chain of command, but this right here is not the military. This right here is a situation where you may actually need to step out and you may actually need to say something, okay? Even in those cases, being in the military, it can be, depending on the services, can be warranted. But still, though, somebody needs to be speaking out. You see, as I just said, I think that the people who are under the higher-ups, or the highest of the high, they're kind of put in a position where their jobs are on the line. It seems to me like everybody who's, say, from the top all the way down, except maybe the person who's really truly in charge, they're looking at losing their job if they speak out. This is one of the reasons why the situation is so terrible. And I think that Ms. Gaines is obviously, or Mrs. Gaines, that's why I think she recently got married, is one of the reasons why it is that she's speaking out about this. Now, there's something else, too, that needs to be said on this particular matter. Is what is the future of women's sports? You see, obviously, little girls in some places are probably cut off by this. You're actually blackpilling these ladies, making them think that, quite frankly, they don't have, a possibility of anything achieving their dreams. You've got some people out there who, by the way, won't say it out loud, but may be happy with this because they think that maybe women will pursue much, much more feminine things. I would tend to say that's a possibility, but still, though, if you're okay with men playing in women's sports, as I mentioned before, there's something definitely wrong with you. You need to seek help. But then again, though, you may be beyond the point of help. There's almost like the crowd that's out there who's okay with women serving with infantrymen in combat, not realizing that those women could get killed or get other men killed. And of course, they attack someone like me for saying that these girls do not need to be in infantry units. They do not need to be in forwarding units because height, weight standards, not being able to drag somebody off, especially being a combat vet myself. I would hate to think that the person who's 5'1" has got to drag me off the field of battle in case I get wounded. Seeing how it is, I'm 5'11" and weigh right at 200 pounds. Of course, when I was I was right around 5'11". I weighed about 170, but still, at the same time, that person's probably going to have a hard time pulling me off. I mean, you can almost use this as the exact same parable to explain the situation that's going on here. Fact of the matter is, biological men do not need to be performing in women's sports. If YouTube decides to limit the ads on this video, then quite frankly, this is one point in time where I really and truly won't care. I really don't care that much anyways, because they, for the most part, limit most of the ads on my videos anyways. But the thing is this right here, it's a serious issue because people have fought so desperately and so hard to protect Title IX, which is one aspect which a lot of people would have considered to be a little bit more on the liberal side of things back in the day. But as you guys can see, it obviously did serve a good function. And now these left-wing loons have shown themselves to be nothing more than hateful misogynists who, for the most part, just simply simp for the system. Look, if you really and truly believe the crap that they're putting out there right now on that side of the aisle, seek help. But then again, though, also at the exact same time, there is this study that shows, multiple studies that show that these people on the left actually do have some mental illness or multiple mental illnesses. Which brings me to my final point. That final point, before I get to it, I want to say this really quick. There's going to be a lot of tweets rolling across, basically, and cut away. If you want to pause the video at any point in time and actually read the tweets, I advise you guys do so. Please do so. You guys know me. I like to paraphrase what's actually being said and try to bring it down to a much more bite-size, a little bit of information. I'm just going to be paraphrasing as we go along, as I explain to you what this final point is in the situation at hand. But just bear in mind, there are going to be a lot of tweets. So if you want to pause at any point in time, Go ahead. Here's that final point that I wanted to make. Now, guys, I talked earlier. You guys heard Riley Gaines talk about how she was been doxxed and all kinds of stuff. Of course, people have gone to schools, campuses to protest against her. There was the issue, I think, at UC Berkeley. But this right here is about my own. Now, guys, it's no secret. You guys know exactly who my presidential preference is. You guys know who my GOP preference is, okay? And, of course, in 2024, we'll talk about it and some of the off-air videos like I'm doing now. The plan, of course, is to do video essays come next year. But, of course, the videos like this right will still exist. At least a few a week. They'll actually hit the analytics mark or the time frame when my subscribers are online, because YouTube does give you that information after a while. So there'll be fewer and far between. You won't see like 2 or 3 videos a day. Probably like one video like every other day, or maybe a video every day per week. It just depends. And then of course the video essay that comes out when it needs to come out. I'll always give let you guys know what's going on there. But here's the thing though. Obviously, whenever a nomination is done, you need to unite behind a candidate. You're probably asking, what does this have to do with Riley Gaines? Well, I'm pulling up some tweets, okay? A while back, Riley Gaines took like $10,000 from the DeSantis campaign to endorse Ron DeSantis, okay? Since then, she has said, and of course, there was also this little post here, and I'll even give you guys additional information in a second. Riley Gaines, like most other people who have a certain preference when it comes to GOP candidate, did say that she would, in fact, support the eventual nominee, which is Donald Trump. She even said she'll be all in. I'll show you guys a tweet here in a second. But here's the thing. She got doxxed by Laura Loomer. Now, somebody in the comment section is going to say something along the lines of, why are you giving her... I'm not giving Riley crap at all. I'm giving Laura crap. And I'm giving the people who attacked Riley Gaines crap. Look, I understand that politics can be war. But still at the same time, doxing somebody is pretty freaking low. Very low. All right? Here's the deal. You may have a preference. Your preference may be Ramaswamy. Your preference may be Christie, which I would find very, very rare for this channel. But your preference may be Haley. Once again, don't agree. Your preference may be DeSantis. Okay, I don't fully agree with you right now. Okay, or your preference may be with my preferences. It may be Trump. Okay. However, at the end of a nomination cycle, you typically tend to unite with one another. And you typically tend to go out and beat the person who's in office to get them out so that way they can stop destroying the earth, the country. And Joe Biden's case is technically the world because, he's giving money to Iran. And while at the same time claiming support, it's very, very, very strange logic here. The fact of the matter is this right here. The girl did not need to be doxxed. Yes, she took some cash. Is it true that the Trump campaign also offered her money? Yes, they did. Gaines mentioned that. Others mentioned that. It just happened to be that the DeSantis campaign offered a little bit more money, which showed their desperation. And, of course, they're still losing, even after Ron put together a solid debate performance. But the fact of the matter is this right here. That debate performance was against Newsom the other night. But still, though, against Gavin Newsom was not really that hard, especially if you got the facts and stuff. But still, the thing is right here. When it's all said and done, you got to unite, you got to win. Stop tearing the base apart. This right here is how you lose elections going forward, is by attacking people who would be your actual ally or your actual voter. Granted, I understand. You're upset because they were endorsed this person first and they were paid to get endorsed. I hate to tell you this, but people get paid for endorsements all the time. That's life, is how it is. Do I fully agree with it all the time? No. However, I also understand that people are people. They are human. Gaines saw Ron's record in Florida and chose to, endorse him upon further review, took the cash. Then she came out and said afterwards, like most voters would, I will support the eventual nominee if Trump's the nominee, which he probably more than likely. I'll put the tweets up for you guys if you guys want to pause and look at them. Basically, what I'm trying to say is this right here. She would still support the eventual nominee. Loomer, as good as she is when it comes to investigative journalism, did in fact delete these tweets, which she should have. You don't dox somebody who's probably going to be in the fight with you come time to get rid of the enemy. That's the way things operate. With that right there being said, guys, this last section, little rant, I'm going to go ahead and end the video now. I've got 2 more videos coming out tomorrow, which is going to be on Thursday. It might be one. I may move the third one to Friday and then go back to 1 video day through the weekend. I'm not sure. I'm going to try to go on a bit of a posting bench over the next couple of weeks before Christmas. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section, and I'll see you guys later.